Welcome to the Starting Over podcast training series. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos. And in this episode, we are going to look at special powers. Special powers are quite unique, and their wording is going to depend on the figure. So you would have to read the figure and see what special power that they have to determine its use. The main purpose of this portion of the training series is to address one of the bigger issues that has come up is what do I do when I see I have a special power on a figure and I'm trying to utilize it? How do I practice with that? And how do I come up with a plan to move forward? The first thing that I would tell you is if you have a special power and it works similar to any other standard power, then I would tell you go back, listen to the videos on those standard powers and see if you can get any good ideas. Okay, so that would be the first thing. The next thing I would say is what category is this figure in? Is it a support figure? Is it a melee attacker? Is it a ranged attacker? Or is it just purely shenanigans? Shenanigans being it does something that's a little bit odd outside of the normal framework of the game just to mess with your opponent. So if it's, a ranged attack element, then you need to utilize okay, then what do I need? Do I need enhancement? Or does this power maximize my attack stats by +3 or, reduces my opponent's defense by -1? Or, does this power allow me not to be targeted after I do a ranged combat action? Whatever that might be, you need to actually just sit down and write down all the options that you have with that power. Then after you write down those options, what I want you to do is just come back to yourself and say, hey, all right, what do I need to pull this off? And the next thing that you really want to ask yourself is, what type of figures or keywords do I need, and do I have access to them? Now, if you don't have access to those figures and you can't borrow them, then you need to walk away from that tactic right now. In the future, you can do it. But as of right now stands, you just can't. So just keep that in mind. The next thing that you want to look at in a special power is, are the disadvantages too much for you to handle, or are the disadvantages against your play style? There are some special powers that say you can do this, that, or the other, but take 1 click of damage. Or you can do this, that, and the other, but this effect is not optional. Or, your opponent is going to get +1 something, during their turn. So determine if you can live with those disadvantages. If not, then that figure just really isn't for you. No matter how valuable it is, or popular it is, or how many people are using it in your local venue or meta, it's just not something for you. All right? So just keep that in mind. The next thing that you really want to look at with a special power is when you're using it and it has synergy with the team, is the effect explosive? When I mean explosive is there, when your opponent faces that effect, are they concerned? Are you able to do something really big with that effect? If not, you're probably better off just walking away from it, unless that piece is a small part of a bigger picture. So when it comes to your big, huge total picture, does this special power really, really make your team pop, stand out from the page, really do something interesting? If not, then maybe you want to consider something else. The last thing that I would tell you when looking at a special power is just determine how simple or complex the power is. And that can matter a lot in the midst of a tournament game. If a power is very complex, you can bet that your opponent will want to read the card multiple times during the game. And if you notice that your games are going on for long periods of time and that your opponents are constantly questioning the power, then you might want to consider either using a simpler version of that special power on another figure, or just setting it up so during the pre-game setup that you explain to your opponent how simple or complicated that power is and how it works. And make sure you know yourself how it works and that you're able to keep up with the nuances of the power throughout the game. One of the biggest examples of this is Metron's Price of Power. Many people forget that if they use any of Metron's Price of Power abilities, that they have to roll once actions resolve, and there's a chance for that figure to take damage. Now, what happens many times is people just say, oh, look, I have Price of Power, I can use these powers here, I'm going to do that, and they don't roll. Now, it is up to you as the player to remember that your opponent has to roll, and at the same time, it's up to you as you as the player of Metron, to remember that you do have to roll. There's no use in really trying to cheat or being malicious on it. But it is very important that that nuance is explained and set out at the beginning of the game so that you don't waste time. If a power is very simple, then just say like, hey, this power allows me to use Leap, Climb, Perplex, and Outwit. Okay, those are very straightforward, and so when your figure is moving around, your opponent might say, how is that figure able to do that? You just say, look, here's my special power. It allows me to use Leap, Climb, Perplex, and Outwit. Okay? All right, so you might say, Dark Logos, how are we going to train? Really? The only thing I can tell you is it's by a piece-by-piece basis. Train per piece that you want to use. Play one game at least before a major tournament with a figure that has a special power that you feel that's really going to win you that game. Okay? Make sure you do that. Don't short sell yourself, because special powers, while they add great fun to the game of HeroClix, not being able to be aware of placement or nuance with special powers can be even more of a hindrance to you than a help. All right. This ends the damage portion of the training series. I'm glad that you stuck through there and pretty much through all of the training series elements. And who knows what happens in the future. I might have some more elements in the training series, so just be on the lookout for that. All right. Thank you for listening. I hope all of these videos have made you a better HeroClix player, and they are here for your reference, for your new players, your experienced players, and your moderate players.